And I said, you know, if this was 20 years ago, we'd start a band. And then I thought about it for a while. I thought, why the hell not? You know, let's do it. And then I was running in the foothills of Santa Barbara, and the endorphins kicked in, and I thought, we need a third. We need a girl in the band. So I called him and I said, I have a sense that we need a strong singer-songwriter, female, and I have a feeling you know her. And he said, know her? I'm dating her. He said, Georgia Middleman from San Antonio. She's got a great voice. She sings on all my demos, and she just wrote the last Keith Urban hit. So I said, okay, I'm coming to town. So I went to town to Nashville, and I sat with the two of them, and I met Georgia, and she sang with us. And within an hour, we'd written our first song together, and that set the tone for Blue Sky Riders.
Is that something where you get that synergy? It really is a key to you. It's not just so much about the talent that the people have, but maybe about the interaction that you have.
Absolutely. It can't just be about the talent. It's got to be about the energy that, because you're going to end up living with these people for 2 to 6 years, and at least. And
then living with the legacy forever.
Yeah, but I'm at a stage in my career where I saw the legacy from the beginning, and we did a fundraiser thing for us to help us fund making the record. And I said to the people, this is a no lose for you. If you want to get one of a kind Blue Sky Rider memorabilia right now, then jump on in, because even if we break up tomorrow, it's going to be worth something, because it was the band we had for an hour and a half, But we are having a great time. We're coming with our first record. Blue Sky Riders is just the name of the record. And we're coming with our first record in a few months. And in the meanwhile, we'll be virtually releasing, in other words, online, 2, maybe 3 singles before we come with the whole album.
You got distribution from a big label, or how are you going to tackle getting this out and into folks' hands?
We're working with a big distribution company. I'm not at liberty to say which one right now, but we have a big distribution company. We started our own label, so we'll have, we have our own president, our own promo, our own publicity, all focused on this record, not on 30 records that they're spending $1 million on. The idea being that, if we sell 100,000, which is very doable, we've recouped and made a few bucks.
What a different world it is, huh? The way records go. I mean, and in terms of just sales, we always talk about this. This is a recurring theme that I'm sure my listeners can really appreciate after seeing and watching, listening to so many of these. Is it going to be downloads? Are you expecting some hard copies to be sold? What's your projection on the way people are actually going to make the purchase and pick up the tunes?
It depends on the people. If you're talking about an adult audience, they're going to wait for probably the hard copy. They're going to wait for a CD, and in the CD, I want to do CD and I want to do vinyl, because there's a whole resurgence of vinyl happening now. So it'll be really fun to design an actual fold-out album cover.
Gatefolds are awesome, brother.
I know, yeah, I miss them, and I also miss the whole two-side thing. Side 1, side 2 is like you could actually build something that has a vibe, and I'd love to kind of build that idea into a CD. Where you have, play the first part, and then if you want, you play the second part, and it's a different energy.
Remember for a while, and I haven't purchased one in a long time. Remember, I guess it was Sony, Columbia was doing it. They had the duo discs. Remember, it would be like one side was the DVD, one side was the CD.
Yeah, they've tried a lot of different things to make it work. But yeah, so this will be available iTunes, Amazon, Borders.com, all that stuff. It'll be available virtually everywhere initially. And then once things start to hook in, we're touring, headlining already in September, which blows my mind because we haven't even got a record out, but we've been releasing things. We've been blogging from the beginning. I got a situation with Huffington Post where we do a weekly article, weekly column for Huffington Post. And it's essentially like a reality TV show, but in writing. We write about what it's like to be reinventing ourselves at this stage of our lives, because this for me is a huge left turn. This is like, I could keep going being Kenny Loggins, and will. This is not the end of Kenny Loggins, but I'm going to keep that going and maybe do different things musically in that direction. But what I'm really excited now is to be a part of a family and to be part of this musical thing that we trade off, in the synergy of the three of us writing everything together and recording everything together. It's like a fourth person in the room, that we've discovered that the entity of who we are is different than any one of the individuals. So there's no one of us leading. It's all this synergy that happens when we write. And it's this idea and that idea, and the energy goes back and forth because we're all very prolific writers. And it becomes this other thing, and it's really consistently a fourth thing that is its own. We're not bouncing off jazz and R&B and things. It's always this sort of country rock thing we're doing, and we're very consistent with it. So it's interesting to watch it grow.
Well, you just think of the interactivity of your career. For a very long time, you haven't been in a band situation like this. It's like you had the duo thing, you had a big solo career, you've done collaborative efforts, but in a lot of ways, as I listen to you talk right there, this is it's a great new experience, or one that you haven't had in a long time.
Yeah, well, it's most kindred to Loggins and Messina, and so I know that there's a quality of legacy just built into doing it, and so I'm very careful about what the image is right now and who we're trying to reach. But the music, I think, is actually very accessible for not only the Loggins and Messina audience or the Kenny Loggins audience, which tends to skew 10 years younger, but there's also a 10 years younger than that audience who's getting turned on to our music and digs it, because it's kind of a retro, kind of a Fleetwood Mac, Crosby, Stills, Nash, but it merges into Lady A. It merges into contemporary country. But it's very much because of where we've been. We hold the style of writing that is from all the way back, harkens back to Loggins and Messina.
You got your feet in a lot of camps. You mentioned the name Crosby, and I think of your son. Did that name, was it inspired by David, or?
No, David, that's the first thing David asked me when he heard about it. I had to say no, but it's not about you. My dad, when I was little, my dad was deep into Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby, and Bing Crosby was his guy. So by naming my son, my first wife totally refused to name our son Bob. So my bow to my dad was to suggest Crosby.
I love it. That's a good one. On that same note of those early years, because we talked about records, and as you were describing the flipping of them and the two sides, it made me think, I wonder what it was that were some of the very first records that either you picked up or somebody gave to you that are meaningful. Are they still? Can you recall what they are?
What I remember the best was my big brother's record collection. Because I would come home. I was what nowadays they call a latchkey kid. I came home before anybody else in the family. So I had a key, and I would come in, and I would go into my big brother's room and steal his records, which he would kill me if he found me doing that. So I had to be very careful about how I took them, how I played them, and how I put them back. It was important that he not know that anyone had touched them. But that was Elvis Presley, Hound Dog, right off the top. I must have played that 6,000 times. And when I hear Adele now, I can't help but think of Brenda Lee. Brenda Lee's early stuff, when she was essentially the same age as Adele, had that same edgy, throaty rock thing, that really raspy, distortion voice. Brenda Lee kicked butt back then. She was like the singer, the one legitimate rock and roll chick back then. I know people are going to write me letters about that, but that's my opinion. And and then of course my brother Dan was into early R&B, so that's where I discovered. Well, we moved from the doo-wop groups of Danny and the Juniors and all the doo-wop groups to the Del Vikings, for those of you who were actually there. We moved into the Platters, the Coasters, Little Richard, Fats Domino. I love Fats Domino. He was like the shit, man. He was like, nobody did it like Fats Domino. And of course Chuck Berry then following in from the whole Louisiana thing.
Did you get a chance later in life, and as you've become the cat that you are, sort of appear to so many of the musicians that you've named in many ways? Have there been moments where you've gotten to interact with heroes? You named Little Richard there. Have you ever run into these cats? Have there ever been moments that you look at, you think of as I'm asking you, that are truly inspiring, where some of the people who really inspired you to play, you were able to bump heads with later and say, wow, I'm glad I got to do that little powwow with so-and-so?
Yeah. Well, what popped into my head was that recently, as the music evolved, I then started playing in the folk era, and I never met him, but Bob Dylan was a major influence for me as a writer. I started writing at that time. But Peter, Paul, and Mary was like the only thing I listened to for early folk days. And now I find myself working with Peter Yarrow. Wow. And he's I just published a children's book called Moose and Me, and it's Peter Yarrow's company, and I'm meeting with him, and we're talking about doing another book. So it's kind of a kick for me to get to talk to him, have dinner and talk to him about the early days, because that's a trio that I'm sort of mildly molding Blue Sky Riders towards. I want to do a video that has Georgia in the middle doing that thing with her hair, and have a microphone hanging down. We're all singing on one microphone.
The one mic is a good bit.
Isn't that cool?
That's a good bit. I went to summer camp with Bethany Yarrow, his daughter. It's a crazy small world.
Yeah.
Got to tell him that. Yeah, some DJ was just telling me he went to summer camp with Bethany. Tell her I said hi, okay?
All right.
Hey, I hope this wasn't a hassle. I hope that on the Blue Sky Riders note, think of this. Try to put it, lock it into your brain there. Next time you say again.
Blue Sky Riders Band, B-A-N-D, because somebody already owned that name. BlueSkyRidersBand.com. Check it out. And we've got a lot of music on there. We've got the early blogs explaining why we're doing it and what we're doing. I think that people think that the story of Blue Sky Riders is really a Kenny Loggins story, but I think it's a Georgia Middleman story. Because here's a girl who's 42, and Nashville had already dismissed her and thrown her away because she was too old. But she's a star. She's a great writer, a great singer, check out Blue Sky Riders Dream, D-R-E-A-M, on YouTube, and you can see the energy that she has on the stage. And the record company had already told her, your deal's up, but we want you to mentor these young girls and teach them how to perform and teach them how to be in a studio. And I thought, what a crime, Of all things, country music in the old days used to be open to any artist with talent. But now they've fallen prey to the same kind of Taylor Swift formula that you've got to be hot and 16 to make it, and that's a shame. I mean, it's good that it's open to them, but why not everybody?
When you come back, you got to bring them in. Maybe you do the HPR Atherton Performing Arts Studio. It can hold 75 people. It's acoustically superior. It'll sound so good. We'll film it. Be a great way to bring this project to your Hawaii audience.
Absolutely. I'd love that.
Kenny, I appreciate it, dude, and you be safe. I hope this is a wonderful gig tonight, and you stay in touch, brother, okay?
Okay, thank you.